Recording in progress.
What, eventually, I hope.
That's what I always say too. I hope I will go.
Are you ready?
vacation someday. Let me record and get you. Okay.
It's not impossible.
Welcome and good evening to the July 19th, 2021 Shakopee Public Utilities Commission meeting. This meeting is being held at the SPU Service Center, and we ask that all participants mute their devices at this time. The public is welcome, and we have an open time slot for the public to address the commission. Ms. Nelson, will you please note the roll?
We have 5 out of 5 commissioners present.
All right. On to communications. Does any of the commissioners have anything they received or heard that they want to share with the commission? If not, we'll move on to number 3. Consent agenda for this evening. I was also hoping to add to the agenda, under number 10, reports, a verbal communication update from Sharon. She wanted to update us on a couple of communication items. So if I could get that added to the agenda that is under consent.
I motion to approve the consent agenda with the aforementioned modification.
All right, and a second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the modification. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, on to number 4, which is our liaison report. Commissioner Brennan.
Thank you. I have 2 items tonight. At the last council meeting, the council purchased the Scott County Workforce Center, and that was done through the EDA. The Workforce Center is where the CAP agency is located on County Road 83. And that building is, we're planning to demolish that building in the near future. And that is with the hopes that it will be sold to a developer.
Okay.
And then tomorrow, so I'm talking about something that hasn't happened yet, so anything can change. Tomorrow, we're discussing the professional services agreement with WSB and Associates for the design and construction services for the utility extension project at Mira Street and Hanson Avenue. So we've been discussing that here also. I know that staff is going to be, city staff is going to be working with SPU staff to resolve some open issues regarding the hookup for water. So just keep that on your mind that that's coming up. I'm also attending the League of Minnesota legislative policy meetings, and I joined those because of there's not only city issues, but issues that pertain to SPU, like water and electricity territory acquisitions. So I'll have more information on that. I sent the information over to Greg to take a look at, so if anybody wants to see that, I'll have him forward it to you. That's it. That's all.
Are there any questions for Commissioner Brennan? All right, thank you, Jody.
Yep.
Next, we'll move on to number 5, which is our public comment period. The public comment period provides an opportunity for the public to address the commission on items that are not on the agenda. Comments should not exceed 5 minutes. As president, I may adjust the time limit based upon the number of persons seeking to comment. This comment period may not be used to make personal attacks, to air personality grievances, or for political endorsements or campaigns. The public comments are intended for informational purposes only. Commissioners will not enter into a dialogue with commenters, and questions from commissioners will be for clarification only. Do you have anybody who'd like to speak tonight? All right. Moving on, number 6 is our reports. General Manager, and we'll start with 6A, General Manager Report. Mr. Durant.
Madam President, Commissioners, thank you. We've had a busy couple weeks again, but we've made some good progress on several things. We did have our first pilot discussion meeting, President Mokal and myself, and then with city staff, and Jean was there also. We had some great dialogue. Next meeting is scheduled for in August, but we made some good progress. We had lots of reports to show on what national averages are, local, state, a couple different ways to look at it, and I thought we made some good progress, and we'll continue those discussions and bring that back at a future date. We've been doing some line loss updating and just making sure that those numbers are right. I did have a meeting with the mayor as well on last Monday. We had a good meeting just about policies and procedures and different things like that. We started our meetings again on our billing system, where their AEM is working on that, meeting with individual, everyone on the leadership team, what we want out of a new billing system, where that's going, and then ultimately we'll start in the next process. We'll start building that bid documents, interviewing some of the potential vendors and what we would like to see, as well as looking at the city's system as well. That is on the radar as well, to see if that can coexist together or if it's just separate. So AEM is working on that. We had a couple meetings on building expansion, with which will be in a later topic today. Joe and I were on a seminar for electric vehicles on the grid, on your electric system, what it looks like. I don't think it was APPA, but it was a nice seminar where it was all over the United States, from presenters from California all the way to the West Coast, to the East Coast, just kind of just a little bit on what your system looks like, what should we be planning for in the future, how it affects your load profile, what can you do to balance out your load. So that really is into planning, and I know we're going to do some rate analysis on that later this year, so it was a good seminar to be at. Lon and Joe had a meeting with an interconnection on Savage, so we're working on some on water interconnection, so we're working on that. I did go last week. I went up to the cities to meet with MMPA, working our power supplier. Just wanted to continue to have an open dialogue with them on what can they do. Can they bring some economic development to the area? We're going to set up a meeting with the city and MMPA, probably Michael Kursky. Every once in a while, they'll get some people that call them on large users, what it looks like, so much water. So just give kind of information back and forth with them. Talked a little about rate structure, EV. I also talked to them about some assistance on some territory acquisition, and they were going to give that some consideration. I know other power suppliers will pay a portion of that, so it's just one more avenue I thought we should at least have a discussion about. So that was some good discussions there with them. We are YouTube live-in today for the first meeting, so we'll see how that goes. And then we'll start promoting that a little bit more going forward, so if somebody wants to watch our meetings and work on that. So we had our first of 2 days, electric superintendent interviews. We had one interview today. We've got 2 tomorrow. BJ is helping us out with that on the leadership team. We think it's important when we're talking about one of our leadership positions that we have one commissioner involved in those. So from time to time you may be asked. I'll just kind of make a list and we'll just start checking off. So now BJ's gonna be done, so we'll run through everyone else as we go through that, and then we'll just kind of work through that. So we don't have a lot of them, but when we do, we think that it's important that a commissioner is involved in those. I do have a lunch meeting with Steve Lillyhog tomorrow. We're gonna just talk about just different things that we're working on together with the city. How can we improve things, continue to do stuff? So I requested that meeting, and we're having a lunch meeting tomorrow. We did have to sign up for some clearinghouse on CDL drivers, so some of our linemen and a few water operators have CDL licenses, and Federal Motor Carrier Administration makes you be a part of this this clearinghouse, and then we can easily go check people to make sure that there's no violations and make sure that all of our people are up to date on all their CDL licenses and stuff like that. So it's something that came out with the Federal Motor Carrier, so now we're all signed up with that. Been reading some articles, and Jody does a great job helping me out on some of these things on Min Power doing time of use rates. I thought that was another good article. You know, as we're going to look at time of use rates later this year, it's just other people are starting to do it. It's in the early stages, but those are good articles. And I know Lon's going to talk a little bit about water today and conservation and some of those. There's been lots of articles on that. And then County Road 83 update, just a real brief one. So we did have a short meeting with city staff today. I think Wednesday is the meeting. The county and the city, we were hoping to have a meeting today. But city staff, Steve, we talked with Steve, and Steve requested a meeting for all three parties to be at one meeting. We think it's important that we all get on the same page. So it was going to be today. We have talked to Tony Winnicki over at the county, but we thought it was important that all three parties be that. So that meeting is Wednesday at 10 o'clock. So we hope to have an update after that, and I can send you a brief email after that. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
All right, any questions for Mr. Drent?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Drent. We will move on to 7A, which is our water items, and 7A is our water systems report. Mr. Schemmel.
Thank you. Last Monday, we restarted our flushing program. Our pumpage has kind of settled down and averaged out. We thought that we could get some more flushing in. We'll have enough progress by the August 2nd meeting to bring that to the commission, show you where we've gotten. Our July average so far for pumpage is at 10.5 million gallons. At previous commission meetings, I had mentioned that 10's just kind of a good day. It's still that way. We don't have any failures or any equipment problems. We've had a high pumpage at 12.8 million in July. The drought index is updated on Thursdays on July 15th. Scott County is still considered in moderate drought. After that would be extreme drought. There are things in our water operations plan that outline, you know, what can be done. But in the meantime, in our water policy manual on the restrictions of water use, the Utilities Commission has adopted a conservation and energy management plan to guide restrictions on the use of municipal water supply. Whenever the Utilities Commission shall determine that a shortage of water threatens the city, it may, by resolution, limit the times and hours during which water may be used from the municipal water supply system for lawn and garden sprinkling, irrigation, car washing, air conditioning, or other uses specified therein. Said resolution shall state the date upon which it shall become effective and shall be made public through whatever means of communication the Utilities Commission deems appropriate and reasonable. 24 hours after said resolution becomes effective, any water customer who shall cause or permit water to be used in violation of the provisions of said resolution shall be deemed in violation of this section of water service. In the event that the Utilities Commission is unable to convene within a reasonable time, authority to restrict use of water from the municipal water supply system shall be delegated to the general manager. So after our regular operations warnings and whatnot have been used up, then the commission has the right to further limit water use. At this point, we're doing fine. The pumpage is really only one part of the picture. Another part is water levels. We monitor water levels constantly via our SCADA system. We have alarm limits set in there that were provided from DNR with guidance on what the water levels should be on a regular basis. So we, you know, so far so good on that. I know that other areas of the state are further restricting water usage. The center part of the state from east to west and going from the north end to the south end is now in extreme drought. Like I said, Scott County and kind of the east side is still in moderate drought, so we keep an eye on that. This morning, we also had a meeting, with city engineering about well 23, which is going to be at tank 8. There's some question about ponding and wellhead protection, and how close can wells be to ponding areas. We got clarification from Mr. Lillehog's people about what can and can't be done, and there shouldn't be any issues, but, you know, we're always keeping, touching base with the city just to make sure where they're gonna go with their ponding plans. We should be able to have a well field up there within maybe 5 years, Joe, we were thinking.
For the second well?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 years.
So, you know, there shouldn't be any issues up there. Greg, did you have the image? I have an update
I'm
on,
getting up there, I gotta push buttons.
oh, okay. Just a kind of a visual update on Tank 8.
This here, this is what it was like June 4th.
Yep. And then those are, images are from this morning, and they're grinding the welds off of the outside of the tank in this basket that they lower. I have no idea how they stay in contact with the bottom of the bowl once they get down to that point. I don't think I want to know. But, and then after they grind them, then they do reprime them so that it doesn't just rust up right away. But, so they have all but the dome done, so it's going pretty well, actually. We still have should have water in it end of October, early November in service. So that's what I have for a report, if there are any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Schimmel?
Oh, I have one. You talked about the flow, the pumping that's going on right now. Is that 10, I think, or 10 and a half? How much do you think that's affected by new development that's coming in? Is that something that we have to plan for in the future? Is increased pumping because of new development?
The new development, it will have an effect, but our pumpage is not, our increase in pumpage isn't following population. All of the fixtures are very conservative. People's habits are getting better. We had a recent discussion with some of the management at BHS, because some of their residents were talking about, you know, they had low water pressure, and after we explained to them that all of their fixtures are 1.5 gallons per minute, and they probably left their homes with, you know, full flow, and they're just not used to it. We checked from one end to the other, and so that entire complex, you know, is very low flow. We have estimates for, you know, 2020, 2030, 2040, but so far, we're not meeting them, you know? So, I mean, sustainability, you know, word people like to throw around, you know, it's looking good, you know? So we think, and actually, the expansions that we were requesting, like 23 and others to the west, it's more geography than demand. You can only push water so far, and then you have to actually have supply out towards that area. So since that's kind of our gateway west, that's why we're looking for additional facilities. So it'll help with the overall capacity for the entire system, but at some point, you just have to move with the population, so,
Okay. Great, thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Schimmel. All right, we will move on to number 8, which is our electric items. 8A is our electric system operation report. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you and good evening. 3 outages to report since our last meeting. First one, Chaparral Avenue, 1 customer affected, 165 minutes. Transformer connections at the culvert place had burned up. Crews redid all the connections, everything was good there. Next 2 were both animals, Autumn Trail, 1 customer affected, bat, opened up the line there. And then Martindale, a squirrel, 8 customers affected, 15 minutes. Update on projects. Crews continue with underground inspections. We have been finding issues with various things. Oil switches we changed out, leaking oil all over. Most of our switches are main feed lines, so it's imminent that we get that changed out. So that had been changed out last week. Texas Roadhouse underground and transformer has been installed. That continues. 1124 3rd Avenue East, install new transformers, shed load off of there was a section in town that we were overloaded, so we cut in an extra transformer to shed some of that load. Levy Drive Duck Bank continues, progress is going good. They're setting there's 3 manholes, last one tomorrow being set, which would almost complete the portion of Levy Drive from Atwood to the Home Street Bridge. They should expect to be done with phase 1, installation of all the conduits and manholes by the end of the week or thereof into early next week. Also relocated some streetlight poles for the city Red Oak Trail project out in Southbridge, and that's about it. Underground inspections continue, so that's all I have for this evening.
All right, any questions for Mr. Carlson? Okay, seeing none, thank you. I was curious if everybody would be all right with moving 10A, the facility addition, to before the electric system overview. Would that be amendable to the commissioners? All right, great. Then we will move on to 10A, the SBU facility, yeah, addition and improvements. Thank you. Mr. Dren. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Ben Hutton from Dell's Construction is here, who is construction manager, so he may say a few things about the bidding process. But we are excited. You know, we've been talking about this project. We've been working behind the scenes. And as you can see from some of these numbers, I think that it is the right time. We were able to, with construction manager, I originally, on the budget side of things, we were thinking we were going to have to replace a bunch of panels. Ben was able to come in and talk us through some processes, and we're able to reuse some of the panels that are back there. So we're really just relocating 2 of the walls in the back area and then doing the drive up in the area up here. So I think we were able to save a lot of money that way. This isn't the final number. We do have some additional concrete work out back for some parking space that we do need. And then we were going to do some remodeling to some bathrooms, plus some of the office furnitures that we will need. So we are going to spend some additional money. I don't want to say that this is an all-in number that's going on right here, but we're excited that we are under budget. You know, there's lots of things that are going on in this bid environment that could drive prices up, as we've seen on other projects. But this one is one that is actually coming in under budget, and partial of that is because when we were doing original budget, I set the budget that we were going to have to get new panels, and we were able to reuse some stuff, so that's just what happened. And I think that's part of why we decided to go with a construction manager on this. Dell's Construction has done other work in the community, as well down by Lee Sewer. I think he helped out with the community center in town, I believe, and some other ones. So we knew him, and we had got the proposal. So with that, Ben, if you want to just talk a little bit about the bidding process. And we did have some sealed bids because we were not sure if some of these were going to go over the 175. So we did post and had sealed bids. So with that, Ben Hutton from Dell's Construction is here. And Ben, go ahead and you can talk about the bidding process a little bit.
Okay, thanks. So we worked with, through the proposal process, we worked and we got proposals from 3 separate design groups, and we went with LS Engineers and Rice Stromgren Architects on the design. Got the design worked out and then posted for bids. We advertised through the local paper, and then also the Minneapolis Builders Exchange, as well as Mankato and Rochester Builders Exchanges to get it out. That's pretty common place for architects to post projects and contractors out looking for, projects to bid on. So that was the process on that end. We had the work, basically the contract scopes broken out into a little over a dozen packages, kind of based on kind of general trade alignment on those, and we had around 30 bids in on those packages.
So, thanks, Ben. And then, so with that, I guess for tonight, we will be happy to answer any questions. And then we are looking really for a motion to approve the bids to get this phase done. This would take care of all of the building updates, the new drive up, the warehouse in the back, and then we will be coming back. I'll work with Ben on putting another bid document together for that additional parking lot and stuff, so we got a little bit more work to do there. But overall, we're looking for approval today to approve this at $1,905,986. And then we will move on getting started, and I heard that they want to move in even later this week and at least do a walk around and start the process. So we would like to get this moving sooner than later. I think building materials is a big thing, and if we can at least get it closed in by the winter, that's important as well. So I know we're early enough yet, but if we prolong too long, we're going to have some winter construction as well. So with that, we will stand for any questions and then a motion for the approval.
All right, do we have any questions for Mr. Hutton or Mr. Drent or other staff? If not, I will entertain a motion. Everyone's quiet.
Motion to approve the listed changes.
All right, we have a motion to approve the bids totaling 1.905986.56 million for the SPU facility. Can I get a second? A second by Mr. Krieg. All right. Any questions on the motion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Nope, that's all. Thank you. We'll talk tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, then we will move on to 8B, which is the SPU Electric Systems Overview with Mr. Adams.
All right, Joe.
It's on my screen, it's not up there. Is that- Up there. Oh, it's plugged into the right one. There, now mine went blank.
Yep, give it a minute, it's coming.
No, it's on my screen, but it's not.
Take your mouse down to look at the screen and look at the P. Take it down. with your
Ann, can you
mouse.
help us out?
Hold the Windows key and hit P. You should be able to cycle it so it clones.
Windows key P to cycle it. Oh, that's the Windows key. Click on extend. And go to your presentation. This one.
There it is.
It's up there now? Thanks, Dan. Thank you. Okay, so Greg asked me to put a PowerPoint together, so this is a presentation on our electric system for Shakopee Public Utilities. You all should have found a copy, a paperback copy of the 100-year history booklet for the utility that was done in 2002. I think you'll find that an interesting read. Some unique things that occurred in the first 100 years are noteworthy. I'm going to go through our system, the broad overview, and then take questions. Okay, so is the pointer, it's not going up there? Oh. So maybe it's on this, no, that's not gonna work either. Best laid plans. This doesn't work either. All right. I don't know why the mouse cursor doesn't show, but on the left, we'll start on the left with generation, where power is created at a generation plant. I've got an image up there, the MMPA flagship generating station, the Faribault Energy Park. It's a 300 megawatt gas-fired combined cycle plant. This could be illustrative of,
I think you said 300, it's 48 megawatts.
I'm sorry?
I think you said 300 megawatts.
I'm talking about the Faribault Energy Park, not Shakopee,
Not Shakopee.
right? Okay. Do I get the right number?
I think you do.
Okay.
I thought you said Shakopee.
No, I'm sorry. But that's just one of many, many power plants that are putting generation onto the grid. That could be a nuclear plant, could be a hydro plant, could be a wind turbine plant. As we know, most of the coal plants are going the ways of the dinosaurs. So more and more solar and wind is being put out onto the grid and less fossil fuels. But this is the flagship plant, and once that generation is created, the voltage has to be stepped up and then put onto the transmission grid, which is illustrated by that red arrow going to the right. And then it will ultimately be delivered to one of our substations. So going ahead, this is a map. It's a little dated, but it shows the many transmission lines surrounding the metro area. Since most generation plants are spread across the state and across the country, and then different voltage transmission lines that deliver the generation to the grid, that is interconnected for reliability. Now, I'll zoom in. This is the Shakopee area on that map. So you can see, I think you can read, yep. So we've got Pike Lake in the lower right, South Shakopee in the lower left, Shakopee in the upper left, and Blue Lake in the upper right, and then Dean Lake in the middle. So those all are representative of our sources. We own those except for Blue Lake, that of course is owned by Xcel Energy. You have different transmission lines running across Shakopee. I've made the comment before, public meetings, depending on your point of view, like mine, either Shakopee is blessed with a healthy transmission system, or if you don't like the views, you maybe feel it's cursed. But it is a big advantage for our community, and it helps with our reliability levels as a utility, because you can see our different substations are tapped into different transmission lines. So within our own system, we have the ability to back up our own substations, and by having them tapped into different transmission lines, that is also an advantage for whenever there's a problem. What does a transmission line look like? Well, this is area along Marshall Road, where you can see in the background the smaller, wider tower, where there's a 230 kV line running east and west across town. That's not really a voltage available for us to tap into for transmission. At the nearer tower, the taller one with a more narrow profile, in the foreground, there's, if you look close at the cross arms there on the metal superstructure, on the left-hand side, there are double insulators forming a V, holding up the wires on each of the three levels for each phase, and that's 345 kV. And on the right side of that tower, you can see single insulator on each of the three arms with a smaller string of insulators that's indicative of a lower voltage. That's 115 kV line running through town, and that's the most common voltage that we can tap for our transmission, or for our substations for the high side. So going back to the overall image, we come out of our substations, we have 88 miles of three-phase and single-phase overhead, and 296 miles of three-phase and single-phase underground electric lines. Over 3,000 transformers and over 18,000 electric meters. We have 5 different substations scattered around town. I'll go through those individually in their locations. And in those distribution lines, then we connect to our various customers, whether they're commercial on the left at 208 volt three-phase, or in the center 480 volt center bottom, the industrial customers, or the residential customers at 120 volts on the right-hand side bottom. And there's also showing some other sources of generation that are going into the distribution grid rather than the transmission grid. We call that distribution or distributed generation. And one of those on the left, lower left, is MMPA's 47 megawatt. Shakopee Energy Park, which is tied in, and I'll show some pictures of how that works, tied in directly to one of our substations. But also some of our retail customers in the center lower, you can see, have solar panels on their roofs, and they tie into the distribution side there. We have many residential customers too that have those at their homes, and I think over the past dozen years, we've added approximately 70 customers, and in this year alone, we have had 70 applications for additional customers. We're going to double the number of residential customers with solar panels on their roofs. It's amazing growth. And then in the upper right, there is a wind turbine indicating, like the turbine outside our facility here, excuse me, that has 160 kW MMPA-owned turbine that's putting power out right into our grid, our distribution grid. So here's a map of our system showing our service territory line in blue. So you can see in the northeast part of the city of Shakopee, bounded by the river there, the city limit line, that XL Energy still has a healthy number of customers in the industrial park inside the city limits. In the lower right, you'll see we extend our service territory into the city of Prior Lake on the north shore of Prior Lake there for a good amount of area, and we butt up to Minnesota Valley Electric Co-op in that area of Prior Lake. And we go around to the west. On the south end, we follow the city limits, and then you can see the red city limit line going to the north, but our blue line continues west, so we're into Louisville Township with some of our service territory, and then up in the northwest, you'll also see we're into Jackson Township with some of our service territory. And as Greg has noted before, he's in talks with MVEC about potential acquisition of territory that is the area the city has recently annexed from Jackson Township to be part of the city, as is per state statute, the law is set up on service territory that municipals can expand with their city growth, but we do have to pay a fair amount for the facilities and for the customers and the lost revenue. You see kind of an anomaly right below the word Shakopee sub. There's a little box there in blue that represents RAR Malting, where they are an XL customer. But we have all the surrounding area, and we actually serve some of RAR's newer facilities that are inside our territory. So they're not served entirely by their own plant, Coda Energy or XL as their backup. So the first sub I think I'm going to show is in the upper left, upper northwest. I wish I could point, but the pointer's not working, and it's the Shakopee sub. So this is a street view of the Shakopee substation. This is a newer substation, actually, because the original Shakopee substation, as it was also called, was aged out and was an outdoor substation with 50-plus-year-old equipment that was failing. We had many outages as it wound down as we prepared a site next door to acquire it and to build this new substation on. So you can see vegetation hasn't completely filled in, but it's a fenced-in compound with a metal building that houses our circuit breakers and metering equipment. We call that a switch gear enclosure. And then more in the center, you can see the power transformer. And as we go to the left, there's steel supports for the bus that carries the high voltage line back towards the wooden structures where the transmission line terminates. And you might just be able to make out there's a circuit breaker just by that central bush or shrubs out front. That's 115 kV breaker. So going backwards, you can see where it says Shakopee. That is still the location. It's right next door where the original Shakopee sub was. And then the red line tracing back to the Scott County sub, that's at 69 kV, which is really a sub-transmission voltage. It's under 100 kV, so it's called sub-transmission. But that is the way that substation is fed. Then the next substation in our system that I want to show you is the Blue Lake sub. It's actually owned by Xcel, and we just have 2 exit circuits coming out of there. We don't own the transformer, we don't own any of the switching equipment. Metering equipment is limited to just what's the 2 circuits that we extend off of their bus. And although I wish I could show you a street view, I can't really show it because it's not on a street, it's on a private drive. Google didn't drive back there. It's a secure area because Blue Lake also has generation next to it. But this is an aerial view of that substation from Google Maps, and this is a similar aerial view, but it has, the green lines on it are our 2 exit circuits, and they're tied together, if you can make them out. One's running east-west, north of the sub, and one's running north-south on the west side of the sub, and then there's a tie between them. So those circuits and that sub-equipment is 1970s vintage, so we are searching for a site, as you know, in East Shakopee to replace this facility since we don't own it and we have operational access issues, and we believe this will go somewhat similar to the original Shakopee sub as it ages out, and we don't want to have those kind of situations, so we want to secure a site, hopefully to build a new sub in the eastern part of our system. The next sub would be the one to the south of Blue Lake, Pike Lake sub, that's actually located in Prior Lake. It's also one of our newer substations. This is a street view from County Road 21. So you can see what a modern sub looks like with our typical lineup. We have that switchgear control buildings just off to the side, to the left side. But the east-west transmission line that's tapping is on the right-hand side of the image. Oh, thank you. Let's see. We can get operator to learn how to use one of these.
Oh, towards the tip of the red.
Oh, got the tip other way. That's lighting up right here, no? Huh? Thank you. There we go. So this is the aerial view with the GIS for our mapping on it. So here's our switchgear building where all our feeder circuits go out into a concrete encased duct bank up and down under the trail on this side, the west side of County Road 21. This was an interesting project because we acquired more land than we needed from the property owner. It spanned all the way across before the highway was even built. And we worked with Scott County to transfer right away to them. And they worked with us because this was kind of a hilly area, a little bit of a knoll, and it needed to be cut down. And so that material worked well for filling the road in as that was built. So it was a really good partnership with the county on that, in that regard. Since we moved earlier to acquire the site for the sub before they could move forward with their road project. But here's the east-west transmission line here, going backward, sorry, to the transmission map. There we go. So this is the Pike Lake sub. Here I can point out, so we got double circuit on wooden structures running east and west across the southern part of the system. And the Pike Lake sub taps one of those 2 circuits, and the South Shakopee taps the other one. And that was by design, again, for higher reliability. Should there be an outage to any one of these 2 lines, for whatever reason, it wouldn't impact the other sub at all. They are what we call looped. They have 2 sources, one from either end, so they are set up that they can be, if they were being energized from one direction and there was an outage, there are the ability to energize it from the opposite direction. It's not automated yet, but it can be automated in the future. At Pike Lake, going back to the image for Pike Lake, we see that we have the room to add a second lineup right here with another tap. So the transmission line is tapped, it goes in, comes back out, so it's looped. And then there's a breaker, and then there's our transformer, and then there's our 15 kV switchgear, which is our distribution voltage, and our underground exit circuits. We could have a second line up here, and when there's a second line up here, this could be an automated process, should there be an outage from one direction or the other, to re-energize both of the transformers there. The next, okay, so we've covered the Shakopee sub and the Blue Lake sub, and now the Pike Lake sub, so now we're gonna move over to the South Shakopee sub, and that is one where the vegetation has grown in very well. So this is the view from County Road 79. The sub's been here since 1997. So the screening vegetation was planted to hide the fence, and the lower half of the substation successfully does that. This is a very compact site, if you've ever seen it, driving by across from the golf course. It was quite a challenge, but we did fit a second lineup in there after more growth occurred. So we had our first initial, so that the tap comes in and goes back out, just like the one at Pike Lake. It's a little more convoluted, the way it's orientated. The substation's kind of rotated 90 degrees. And then we were able to add a second lineup in here. It's a very tight site. It's next to a wetland. And I'll cover some things, but you can see an outline here. This is a containment area, since the power transformers are all filled with mineral oil, no PCBs at all, but with mineral oils. Should they ever spring a leak, the oil will be contained inside this moat, if you will, until it can be pumped out. So it won't go beyond those limits and into the wetland or the environment. So then the next sub is really in the center of our system, and it has most of our facilities in it appropriately, and it's the Dean Lake sub. And that one, here's a street view of that. You can see those same transmission lines that were at Marshall Road. You kind of see the squat 230 kV tower, but here's the double circuit, 345 on the left, 115 on the right. So additional structures had to be added, wooden structures here to intercept the 115. And this steel structure was here to lift up the 345 so that the 115 can go underneath it. And you can see that this is a little bit of a bigger superstructure here at Dean Lake. It is close to 169, and even though the transmission system's independently operated for the benefit of all the utilities that are using it, it is owned by Xcel Energy in this area, and they had a concern of salt spray coming off of the highway that would coat the insulators, and there might be some flashover on the 115 kV. They had experienced quite a bit of trouble with that in their Parker's Lake substation along 494 in Plymouth, because they're located on the east side in the prevailing winds. So they had to put up a giant netting material to capture that salt spray to keep it from coating the insulators. The salt is conductive and it'll track across the insulators and cause flashovers. And they have to be cleaned periodically. What we did here was two things. We first selected to use a larger air gap. So our substation is actually 115 kV, but it's insulated to 161 volts, the next level up. So it's a bigger air gap between everything to prevent those flashovers. And then the other thing we did was all these insulators have a small current induced on them that repels the salt spray. So we didn't need the large netting. We were down in a hollow below the freeway because it's elevated. That wasn't really going to work, Xcel said. So we teamed with an engineer out of Canada to come up with the special insulators, and we also paid to upgrade the superstructure so it's really insulated for 161 kV. This is, as I said, our main substation as it's evolved. Being in the center of our system, it feeds much of the industrial park, and it also feeds a lot of the growth that's occurred east and west of it, south of 169, especially in the hospital, St. Francis campus area, east and west of there, and out Eagle Creek towards Southbridge until we got the Pike Lake sub added. We now have 3 lineups of switchgear and transformers in here, and we put transformer number 1 here. Why would we put that in the middle? Well, that was the only one. That was the first one. So the first transformer went there, and I think we called it Dean Lake 2 because we knew the second one we were going to add, we would call Dean Lake 1. And this third slot was really excess land that was good for nothing else. So we got it, obtained it from the industrial park developer, Valley Green, and we really didn't anticipate using it until this energy park came along with the opportunity to have some generation in town owned by MMPA. And so this is the first, one of these is the first switchgear building, the second one. You can see the third one is much, much larger. It's because of the interconnect that goes out west to the energy park is all run in there. Even though the lines are drawn this way to this, it's, I think, going in here in the larger building. And this building houses some metering and relaying equipment for Xcel Energy, because this is one of those subs that has all the breaker positions filled now on the bus here, and this is more automatic to switch should there be an outage in one direction or the other. So this is the sub I was going to go into more detail on. This is a initial plan, a view of the facilities in the sub. So this is showing the breaker system that's in there. This was the initial breaker that was added, installed with the first. We didn't add the other 4 breakers until the third lineup came along. The generation comes from the Shakopee Energy Park and runs into the sub onto the 15 kV bus. There's an elaborate system of switching inside the switchgear and outside that enables a couple of the generators at the plant to be tied to one switchgear building, a couple others to be tied to one of the other of the 3, and the last of the 5 generators tied to the third one. And it provides a great deal of reliability and ability for any excess generation to go up onto the grid should that be called for. But we use most everything they generate when they are generating locally. We have 100 megawatt, 110 megawatt peak demand in the summer. This is a 47 megawatt plant. We have a 60 megawatt approximately winter peak. So it's really nice to have this located locally to be able to back up all the generation that's more distant and reliant on the transmission lines to come to us. Coming out of these buildings, we have various duct banks for the feeder circuits. This one goes under the highway. We have 2 different pushes under the highway with a large diameter steel casing pipe with plastic conduits set inside that, and then the cables are inside those conduits. Then we have concrete encased duct bank running east to the business park and south to the what was a county road, now Eagle Creek, and going east and west on there. This is to get all of our capacity out onto our distribution system. So that's another blow up, and you can see in this drawing, these are smaller containment for the oils, but they all are interconnected and drain to the bigger one. The third one has enough capacity there to hold the oil from multiple transformers there. What else is interesting on this drawing? I guess these are outside the sub. They're pad mount switch gears to take and control the circuitry coming from the Shakopee Energy Park. And again, the newest control building is much larger to handle all the interconnects from the energy park into the other older enclosures. This is a side view of that superstructure and the transmission, better illustrating the way we're able to raise the 345 so the 115 could get under it to the height it needed for that 169 kV insulation. Then you can see the 115 kV bus running through over to the switches and the transformer, and then it's all underground from there. There's a different view from the south, another view up the driveway. Kind of a close-up of that bus structure. So there's a lot of steel goes into constructing these support structures. And insulated switch, I think one of these was just replaced this year. An older one, it's SF6 gas, sulfur hexafluoride gas insulated for interrupting contacts, and we're having trouble with a gas leak on one of them. And this is a picture during the construction of the delivery of the power transformer for the third one. This is one of the two largest capacity cranes in the state of Minnesota that had to be scheduled for when this was ready. You can kind of see this is the deck it's going to sit on, but you can kind of see the containment for a potential oil spill surrounding it. Had to all be dug in there first, and now that's being lowered. And there it's set on its pad from Virginia Transformer Company. It's a lot of different accessories that go with the transformer in order to keep it insulated, be able to monitor its condition, the oil condition, if there is a pressure problem. So this is some of the underground conduit that runs from crisscrossing out of the transformer over to the switchgear buildings and back out as distribution circuits. So that's all got to be pre-installed. This is the foundation work for the control building itself. You can see exit circuit conduits and incoming conduits before the concrete's poured there. This is looking west. Here is the delivery of the control building. Scheduling again, this is a different crane. It's the other of the two largest cranes with capacity in the state of Minnesota. That we would need both of them on this job. This is a very interesting build. So that building's getting lowered. It's called a metal enclosed switchgear building, built on an I-frame, doors for access. All the panels are steel sided. Couldn't tell in the Prior Lake or the Pike Lake sub that's located in Prior Lake. We actually have some brick veneer on some of the structure, and City of Shakopee standards now require that. We're going to be doing that with the newest sub when that gets built. But these are all metal, all steel, painted steel. We call it battleship gray. This is an interesting chute coming out of here, as if there's any faults with highly charged gases will be directed out away from any personnel should there be a fault that occurs while someone's inside. We do a lot of remote switching now with our SCADA for safety reason, but these are operable either locally or remotely. These are all the breaker cabinets, like your panels in your garage or your basement. There are circuit breakers on each of the feeder circuits that come out, and a main breaker on the feed coming in. This is kind of the back of those compartments, so you can see with some of these cabling going past and up, but up here is a big arc chute. So the upgrade was authorized to have the arc protective gear that was developed. These are the exit circuits going out to those switches on the side leading to they're coming actually in from the Shakopee Energy Park to feed into our grid. So back to the overview. So we kind of covered generation, transmission, and now the sub to our distribution grid, distributed energy sources coming onto the grid, some behind the meter, the secondary meter with customers with solar or wind, and then all the miles of line that we have. We have about 22% overhead still, but majority, 77% is underground. This is a map of those feeders. These are our main three-phase feeder lines. You can see the concentration near the substations. Here's Pike Lake, Dean Lake. We have to blow up these images and have other maps to show because there's so many circuits crisscrossing each other. Blue Lake, Shakopee sub, South Shakopee sub, but you can see the pattern. We do follow the roads. We follow the county roads and we follow the city collector streets to bring the feeders out to the neighborhoods, to the commercial centers, to the industrial park and downtown. What's next for us? The West Shakopee substation, we're gonna be adding that. That's on this location right here. That's our current project that we're working on in the design stage, working with our consultant from Lados, Kevin Favreau. It's nice through consistency, all of these sub additions that I've gone through, beginning with, in order, South Shakopee was built first in 97, then Dean Lake, first one was built, then South Shakopee 2, then Dean Lake 2, then or Dean Lake 1, then 2, then South Shakopee 2. We had like 4 substation projects in 4 years. We had so much phenomenal growth going on at that time. And then later on, we were able to replace the aged Shakopee sub and add the Pike Lake sub in Prior Lake. And we would like to, after the West Shakopee sub, get something on the east side. This is the site from County Road 69. You can see that tower again with the double circuit on it. So we've got 345 coming in and going, coming in from the south and going east. We got the 115 coming out of Scott County on these lower, coming up here. But we're gonna cut into that in this field when we build our sub. Here's an aerial view of it. Right now, we have a circuit running past it that we had to install to buy us time, feeding out of the South Shakopee sub to help alleviate some of the loading on the Shakopee sub and South Shakopee sub. We needed an additional feeder out of there to pick up some of the load growth that's going on while we build this sub. This is rotated 90 degrees, but this is the site laid out with our first lineup will be on the east side of the site. That 115 kV line will come in instead of going up to the tower. It'll be redirected through our site and then up to the tower where then it'll go east. We're gonna have one breaker ahead of our transformer. We'll have a control building. We'll plan to have a double control building end to end after, whenever we add the second lineup. XL will have space for a building there. We had to illustrate to the city, that all the equipment can make the corners and make the turns inside the fenced-in compound. We're gonna have screening around the edges. We ended up with this teardrop-shaped parcel. We're very fortunate because of its proximity to the transmission line and its availability, but we do have a little bit of extra area on the south end, and Greg has identified it potentially. We will have, of course, we'll have any ponding we need, but we'll still have room, maybe put a car charging station right next to the sub for a fast charge DC charger, level 3 that can be identified on all the locating maps right off a freeway exit. I think it'll be very advantageous. There will be an R trail system running right alongside here, so we may have a level 2 there too, and people may like to do some exercise while their car is charging there. And I'll take any questions.
All right,
That's our system.
all right. Mr. Drenton.
Thank you, Joe. And I think, as we discussed this, I had asked Joe to put this together. We've talked a lot about water and where all the water towers are and some of the things we're working on there that I just wanted to get in front of you. We talked about West Shakopee Substation and what we're doing there, but I thought it was just a good overview. I know we got some new commissioners, kind of where we've been. So Joe simplified it, so thank you, but it is a very complex system of switching and double lineups, and we do have redundant feeds out of our substations. So if one transformer goes down, we do try to load our transformers at 50% or so. So if one of our main power transformers would go down, we could feed from the other building and still have reliable power. So that's what we're trying to do. Otherwise, we run to another substation and grab some energy there. So we do have redundant feeds out in the system that we try to make sure that we always have a backup if we have the system go down. And obviously, you can see even if the transmission system go down. Now, if both lines go down with a tornado or straight line winds, we can't help out there. But you can see we've done lots of planning to make sure that we do have a good, robust system on our electric side. And you've seen some of the water planning, and now you've seen some of the electric planning. So we just wanted to give it more of an information. There really is no action. We know that we've talked about the West Shakopee, and that is moving along. Kevin has given us an outline, and we will bring that back to you soon on what that looks like, responsibilities for Excel, what they're gonna do, responsibilities for what we're gonna do. So we're right in the middle of that. We have meetings on a regular basis to make sure, so they're on board, city's on board, and really we're moving forward to make sure that as that growth goes out in that area on the west side, we're poised for that. We can handle it the way it is if there is something that pops up right now, but really for long-term, we do need that substation in that area.
All right, commissioners, any questions?
Two, actually.
Yes, go ahead.
On the last slide, the bit for Excel, is that because they own the transmission line, or why do they have buildings on our property?
Just like in the Dean Lake sub here, see, they own the electrical equipment enclosure, they call it, here. So they have to, just like we are a customer, like you're a customer of ours, we have our meter on the side of your house in a socket. Well, they need metering in place to bill for the delivery of the energy over the transmission system. MMPA generates it and then pays them a fee for what's delivered over their transmission system. The system has to be operated by MISO, the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator in this part of the country, and it's an open access system, so there's so much capacity in the availability of the lines, and you have to get in a line, a queue, if you will, to reserve it, and that's what we went through with a process already on the West Shakopee sub. But for them to have the ability to meter, and then they own the 115 kV. We don't own the 115 kV. We own only the portion that is a circuit switcher, and circuit breaker, as the case may be, that's right in front of our transformer and the high side of the transformer, that part of the bus. But they own all of this with all of the breakers and conductors that take tap their transmission line as it runs past our site. They have to be able to monitor, they have to be able to control those breakers, they have to meter things, they need relays. So that's all local in this building. And then they have SCADA too, so that at their control center, they can see what's going on, do remote operations.
I was asking specifically about the one we're planning yet.
Well,
Is that the same thing?
that's the same
Oh, okay.
thing, I'm sorry. So when we get to that slide, whoops, went all the way off, didn't I?
We're
Shouldn't
done.
use the mouse. Dan said, don't use the mouse. And I did it anyway. See if I
Can you
can
use
just
your
click on
sensor
it.
pad on the laptop?
Can that just, I'm clicking on that, is that gonna come up, Denise, or no?
Do the window.
Window P. Extend.
Or clone it? Because then what you see in front of you will be on there.
Foreign language.
Yeah, it's okay. The second
Wait,
question.
sorry, I went off screen.
Oh,
It's showing that there's room for it. They would add it when we add that second line up. Just like at Pike Lake, they would need to have an equipment building there too.
Okay.
So anytime we have two or more, they would need to have that building. So we need to leave space for them.
And then the second question was, and it was the wording, for the salt solution to prevent the flashovers you were talking about. You said we had to work with someone to develop a solution for that. So that makes me think that this wasn't a pre-existing thing, and
Well,
did we
they-
patent that or something?
No, the type of insulators that have the induced current on, they are a known product and a known quantity. At the time we did that in 1997, 1998, it wasn't yet universally employed outside of Canada. We worked with the professor at the university I want to say Toronto, but it could have been one in Montreal, McGill, but he's the one, literally, we have his book. He wrote the book on how this can solve this problem, because other utilities struggle with it. With my experience with the Navy, naval substations on their property at their bases where they take power off the grid from Southern California Edison or PG&E or somewhere in the Pacific, they have the same thing near the ocean. You get a condensation, a fog with salt elements, deposits. They're constantly having to run around with a fire hose on a truck, wash them off, if the rain doesn't do it for them frequently enough, and you know how they're having droughts. So in case your natural rain doesn't wash them and clean the salt off adequately, you have to do that. Or you can put a charge, an electric charge, on the insulator, and it repels the salt, so it doesn't even get deposited on it. That was, if you will, the belt, and the 161 kV insulation was the suspenders. We had a belt and suspenders solution that we accepted responsibility for, because Xcel did not want to have us build that substation in that location. And we had to prove to them that it would work. And working with that professor who wrote a letter report on it, helped a lot. And then paying to upgrade to 161 insulation for the gear also helped. And we have not had, to this date, an incident there like they have, used to have at Parker's Lake before they put up that netting.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Any other questions for Joe? Well, thank you for the presentation. I think this is great information for us and for the public as well, to see how much goes into these systems. All
I
right.
encourage everyone to read through that
Yes.
booklet. It is very fascinating history in this community. It doesn't, it's a historical community. It has many well-known history elements within the community, but the electrical system too has some historical significance in developing open access throughout the country. We were one of the first communities to get a second point of service through dragging NSP then through FERC and the courts, because they were denying communities having a second point of service. Until we got ours out of Blue Lake, they said they'd never done that. And the open access that we now all enjoy off the transmission system, that was kind of like the baby step towards that nationally.
Interesting. All right. And with that, we will move on to 10B, which is our communication update from Ms. Walsh.
Thank you. Just a quick update on what we've been working on since we last met. I'm working with the Water Department and the engineering group on the water tower, which you see is getting close to being completed. So I'm working to make sure our branding and our Pantone colors are as close as we can be to our actual logos. Last week was Rhythm on the Rail, our first event. We really had a great time interacting with our customers. The weather, I think, kept the crowds down. I think I heard it was only about 2,500 people when it's usually around 5,000. But still, we wrangled in as many people as we could. I think Greg was impressed with my ability to make eye contact and lure them in. But even with all of that, we only were able to complete just under 80 surveys. So, but the people that did stop, I told them it was a 3-question, 30-second survey, and most people that were there any longer than that was because they were really enjoying talking to Joe and the water staff and really engaging. So for me, it was a very positive experience watching all of that. This week, we're focusing on conservation, so there won't be any requirements from the customers other than to stop in and say hello, and they'll walk away with a little trinket, which this week is one of those jar grippers that you can open. And the slogan is, "I'm not weak, I'm conserving energy." So just a little fun thing for them to walk away with. I'll also have the tablet there in case there are people that have heard about the survey and the water bottles, and we'll keep working it. But conservation is our focus, and it will be myself and my staff heading up that one this week. We continue to work on the deposit policy, identifying those accounts based on their payment history that could qualify for a return of their deposit once we launch that in August. Last week was our first week of going back to what we call the special disconnects, which are for those people on payment plans that have missed one of their payments. We did reach out prior to actually doing those disconnects, and so last Tuesday, I wasn't here, but my staff told me we were less than 40 that actually needed to be disconnected due to that. So that was, again, a good collection effort from staff to help people avoid disconnection. This week would be our regular disconnect, our monthly process, but Greg had mentioned earlier, I'm so sorry, I still cannot get rid of this cough. This week, we're supposed to disconnect, but with the high heat, we're not going to. So I've put a Facebook post up telling people that it's been delayed due to the heat, but please contact us if you have not set up a payment plan or made an effort to bring your account current. And let's see, a little bit of information on that is that our regular collection this month would be just over $70,000 and just over 400 residential customers. If I took out a few of the businesses that most likely will pay, and I just look at that, I can't remember the last time prior to COVID even, that we were at $70,000 for a disconnect. So we're making strides in the right direction. The last thing then I just wanted to talk about or just throw out there is if the commission would like to talk about returning to penalties for late payments. We had talked about pushing that out through Q2. We're in Q3 now, and so if it's anything you'd like to talk about and get a consensus on tonight, or if you'd rather I come back with it as an agenda item, I could do that as well.
Thoughts of the commission?
Well, I think it's a discussion that we should have regarding the credit card fees, the online payment, and really the late charges. And I think we could probably do it at a future meeting. You know, I would like to know what is the benefit of the late charge? Is it like a penalty? Is it like a penalty?
Yeah,
Like
it
a-
is.
like-
It is.
Or is
Just
it
because you had to
recouping, is it a
yeah.
recouping a loss of
Right,
funds?
that's what I was thinking too, like the
No, it
recouping
is-
of the shut off, or is
It
it
is
just?
in addition to, so
Okay.
it is prior to any sort of collection letter being mailed or getting to the point of a service order for disconnection. All bills are due on the 15th or the next business day should the 15th fall on a weekend or holiday. If you do not pay by that date, anyone that has an outstanding balance would be assessed 5% of their current bill only. So if you're bringing forward a few months, that's not built into the equation. It's only your current month's bill would get a 5% surcharge added to your account balance. When I send out the collection letter, if you still have not paid between the 16th and usually around the 27th, 28th of the month, then your collection letter would indicate your total account balance, which would include that 5%. So,
I think it would be a great idea to bring it back as an agenda item and with a few more of those details like you were just explaining, because I think understanding the process is part of it. And then with the thought that we would be returning at some point, and then the commission can decide at that point what that time frame is. Thoughts from anyone else? Any additional things you would like to see?
Nothing that doesn't really go down the rabbit hole. I've never really liked that punitive system because it's oh, you don't have money, so here, give us more money. So it's kind of self-defeating in that regard because, I mean, digging them deeper into the hole isn't going to get them out. But it's also like, you have to have some kind of incentive system there. But it's not really an incentive, it's a punishment. It's a disincentive to not do it, or to make sure, whatever I meant. But if we like if you get caught up and we waive it type thing, or some kind of something where they can go, oh, sorry, I'm bad, I messed that up, and not sandbag them too much.
Like a communication at least from them. Because I think that's, to your point, why we're have a less balance is because we're having that communication. But I don't want to get to the point where we're forcing that from them and have that expectation that we are going to do all the work for them.
I think ultimately the best solution would be some kind of automated payment plan where we can, once they get onto that, then like if you have whatever fees or whatever, if you get on the plan, we'll forget about it as long as you keep paying. But, we kind of earmark them where if they think they're clever and make one payment and jump off, then we keep it there. But if they do get on a plan and keep to it, then it's forgiven.
And that is how we promote ACH, saying exactly that. If you sign up for ACH, it's, a no-brainer for you. It's automatic. You'll never pay another late charge. You won't get a collection letter. You never have to worry about being disconnected. It really does aid people. And probably the only reason people don't get on it is, one, they like having maybe more control and don't want someone to have access, or two, they can't guarantee that every single month on the 15th they'll have the funds. But we do really try and push that for those reasons.
Yes, Mr. Grant?
And with some of the options that we have had, with waiving some of the late fees and even some of the disconnect, I know that the staff, Sharon's staff there really has appreciated that, and it really has driven down those balances. If we tell them we'll waive the $100 reconnect fee if you bring your account current, it's magic how they all of a sudden have some money and able to bring that down because they can waive the $100. So I do thank you for that. It has made it easier for us to drive down these balances, but Gene's gonna be on the other side that now all of a sudden we don't have some revenue. So we do have to balance that and understand what that looks like. So yes, I think it is important that we bring it back. And at least I've asked Sharon to start looking at it. Just this morning we had a discussion. I said, what did 2019 look like for some of those revenues, so we can understand as an organization what it looks like to waive all late fees or what it may look like. So if we bring that back, we'll have some of that historical data. Obviously with 2020, COVID, and now recently we haven't had that. So we really need to go back to 2018, 2019 to really look at what it would look like if we go back to semi-normal. And if we don't have that revenue, where does that come from and what does that look like?
But the other side of that coin is how much revenue are we missing out on? Because like you said, it was an incentive to get people to catch up waiving that 100. Yeah, we're out the 100, but we got the 500 or whatever that they actually owed. So isn't missing out if they weren't gonna pay if we made them pay it.
And like I said, and I think that waiving the $395 is an absolute no-brainer. People were complaining about that on a regular basis. I think we have to absorb that into our line item, into our budget, and just say, if you pay with credit card, there's no extra fees. I just think that that's important for us as an organization to offer some of those benefits. But I do agree that, by collecting the money, it's better than sending it to collection and we lose X, Y, and Z % because we go to collection. Then we don't want to send anybody to collection if we don't have to. So.
Yep. And then you're getting a fraction of it anyway.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll have that as a future agenda item. Thank you for the update, Ms. Walsh. We appreciate it. Looking at future agenda items, is there anything anybody wants to add for staff to bring forward? All right, seeing nothing. Tentative dates, August 2nd is our next meeting. I believe we are looking at not having the August 16th meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Durant?
Yeah, so I mean,
Okay.
depending on what, I think there's going to be 4 commissioners here. If we have some things that we have to pay bills
Okay.
or something, we could have a short meeting.
Okay.
Obviously, the September 7th one is a compensation classification one that has to be done.
Yep.
So that's going to be a little bit longer one. In past years, I think there's been sometimes in July we haven't had 2 meetings, so we did have 2 meetings. So I think that unless Mr. Adams has something where we have to get something on the planning side of things where some resolution has to be done, I think we
Okay.
could skip that one and be okay.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because I know we talked about it, and then we really didn't make a hard and fast decision, so I just wanted to see where we were on that. All right, and with that, if there's not anything else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn to August 2nd.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, about time.